Okay, we're going to have our next speaker. Dave Conroy, I work with on a daily basis, which is fantastic. We're both members of CRT Labs, which is the research and development team at NAR. And Dave is a lab engineer, works on hardware and software projects for us, but he's going to talk about something very different today. He's going to, well, I'll let him say what he's going to talk about. But this is great stuff. And again, we're talking about things that, you know, if it's not happening today, it's going to happen very soon, and it will impact your business. So here's Dave Conroy.
Thanks, Joe. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about blockchain research today, as it's a topic that I'm actually really very passionate about. But before I go into the description of what blockchain is, you know, I've spoken about this topic for years now, and I think that sometimes I let my personal obsession with this get in the way from making a clear presentation. You know, sometimes I'll dive into all of the unique computer science aspects that makes blockchain, you know, better than traditional databases. But so today, but before I do that, I'd like to kind of just talk about why blockchain could be a good application for real estate. And to do that, we're going to start by just looking at all of the different players currently in a real estate transaction today. You know, you've got buyers, sellers, buyers agents, you've got attorneys, mortgage brokers, recorders offices, people who are looking at title, home inspectors, insurance providers. And you know, there's no surprise that that could turn a real estate transaction, you know, an average, maybe even 45 to 60 days. And that's because the way people are storing information today is all within silos. So, you know, your MLSs have certain sets of data, title companies have their own, mortgage brokers have their own. And throughout this home buying process, the information is handed from one place to the next. Sometimes there are changes that need to be made. It needs to go back and forth. And it requires a lot of extra due diligence that if people were able to find a verifiable way to trust these transactions, there could be so many efficiencies gained. And also, when you're thinking about the number of people involved and all of those handoffs of the data, it provides a really rich opportunity for cyber criminals. You know, every single person that is involved, say 50 individual people involved in a real estate transaction, every single one of those is an access point for cyber criminals. So if we were able to find a way where everyone could kind of be working from the same data set or working from the same thread or the same blockchain, I really think that it could revolutionize how real estate is transferred today. Now, before I go into the rest of my slides, I'd actually like to show a quick demo that I've built to help demonstrate the benefits of blockchain in real estate. Because yes, there are some awesome, you know, computer science functions like the cryptography involved and the hashing and the mining. That's all really interesting. I think it is much more clear when we actually walk through a live demo about how this should work. So I'm going to escape here from our presentation and move over to our demo. So can everyone see the screen here? What we have here is actually 3 parties for a single real estate transaction. Up in the top left, we have what would be a brokerage view. That's the picture of Mark. On the top right, we have a home builder's view. And across the bottom, we have a view what would be from a county recorder's office. So in this scenario, I wanted to keep it very simple. Imagine you are moving to Florida. You've already picked out what neighborhood you want to live in. So at this point, you're really just choosing between a few different model homes. And so I'm going to demonstrate how using blockchain could help streamline the entire process. So I'm just going to start here on the top left with the brokerage view, and we're going to customize that model home. So this is just simulating what a broker and a client would go through together for new construction. So we have 2 beds, 3 beds, 4 beds. Let's pick the 4-bedroom. We can also customize some of the features of this 4-bedroom. For example, we could select you know, the modern fixtures. Let's go with the pale green interior paint. I really like the chestnut flooring. And for extras, got to have granite countertops. And of course, because I'm from CRT, we have to have the smart home package. So when we hit purchase here, the order isn't just being sent to the builder. At this point, anyone who's involved in this transaction, whether it was the title company, the finance company, they could all kind of subscribe to this chain. So when I hit purchase, you're going to notice that on the home builder dashboard over here, that the order will come in there, but also we're going to notify the county, because now what used to be just a piece of land is now going to have property built on it. There's going to be a parcel ID, and that parcel is going to have an owner. And we're going to kind of be able to establish chain of title right from the beginning. So I'm going to hit purchase here. And we should see the order come in on the builder dashboard, which is over here. And across the bottom, you also notice this information is starting to feed into the recorder's office. So the builder can use this type of technology in other ways, not just from collecting orders, but also for their supply chain management, because they just received an order for a 4-bedroom with specific paints, specific appliances, and they need to start organizing their crews for the build. So let's simulate how that process goes. And what's really nice about this is, because everyone is working from the same ledger, is that you can keep your clients updated in real time. So as things are being accomplished with the build, the broker app is getting updates, as well as the county, because often during installations there are times that the electrical needs to be inspected, things like that. So we're able to kind of keep everyone working from the same thread. So I'm going to start the build process here. So I'll click Start Build. Again, this is just 3 applications looking at a single transaction. So when I select Start Build, now the builder is going out and is acquiring all of those building materials, the appliances with the countertops that I ordered, making sure they've got my smart home stuff ready. They're scheduling their crews. They're working with the county, so when a parcel ID is assigned, the consumer is aware of it, as well as the county. And all the way up to the point of delivery, everyone can be synced in real time. So you just notice here it says construction complete. So we've been demoing this at our booth today. It looks like CRT Labs has built 37 houses today, so a pretty good weekend for us. Again, and if anyone wants to walk through this demo a little bit further, we're happy to do so at our booth 2825. So I'm hoping that this kind of gives you an idea of, the blockchain, really what it does, besides all the cryptography and the security and the identity management. Really what it does is it provides a verifiable record of transactions that people who are involved in the same industry or the same transaction could all share. Now, I only chose, 3 applications here, but you could very easily plug in something for title, something for financing. So the parts of this transaction that aren't covered here, could easily be shared. And now everyone is not repeating due diligence at every step along the way. And if there's any issue, everyone knows about it. I could imagine that this could lead to closing times moving up from 45 days to, say, 15. There's less risk of fraud, because now that title is digitized and we have actually ownership established. If someone were trying to sell a title that they didn't own, the county is going to be able to run like some of the algorithms that Alex spoke about earlier. You'd be able to detect fraud in advance, because you can do that type of analytics on a blockchain that you can't do on a filing cabinet. So now I hope that people here kind of get an idea basically of what blockchain is. It's not necessarily Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. I'm not expecting you to sell homes with tokens. I think when Mark and I were giving this road tour over the past year or two, we brought up the topic of tokens, and someone said, tokens are for Chuck E. Cheese. There are so many more benefits from blockchain that you can get that don't even involve the financial aspect. While I do believe eventually it'll get there, we don't have to start there. All right, so I'm going to just jump back over to my slideshow. So again, blockchains provide a verifiable and trustworthy record of events and transactions. So I feel really lucky to work for CRT and NAR, because our main focus is to just focus on any emerging tech that could affect real estate. And we get to go investigate these problems. And a major part of our responsibilities there is education. So I get to tour the country, speak to realtors about what I think is coming down the road. We get to advocate on behalf of it. And we also get to innovate. Like I get to build demos like I just showed. So to finish up for the last 5 minutes or so of my presentation, I'd like to provide just some basic education on blockchain, and as well as how CRT and NAR are advocating and innovating on that exact topic. So NAR is involved with blockchain because we feel that it can greatly improve property records. Personally, I think it has the potential to be one of the most impactful technologies in the next few decades, right up there with AI, social media, big data. If you're reading any trade journals about this topic, you'll notice that the 3 sectors or industries that everyone always points to the best applications for this is financial tech, supply chain management, and real estate, just because of the high value of the assets that are involved and the number of parties and the current amount of friction. And we think it will reduce the cost of business, help you get to the closing table faster. There's multiple reasons why NAR is involved. Another nice, interesting thing about blockchains is that because everybody in like all of those people I showed before, the brokers, the MLS, it could be an MLS, a home builder, the county, everyone retains their own copy of the data. So it's very easy to see if someone is making changes. They could automatically be rejected from the transaction. We also think that when we have these blockchains in real estate, that we're going to have more informed consumers. In 2007, I bought 2 things, 2 major purchases. It was a big time in my life. I had just graduated college. I purchased a 2007 Camry, or it's actually a used Camry, it's a 2004 Camry, and because of applications like Carfax, I was able to know every single previous owner, anytime there had been insurance claim on it, almost every time it had been serviced, and I knew everything about this $10,000 car. The same year, I bought my first condo, and while my agent was great and we did a lot of research, I really knew very little about that home besides what I was able to gather from the few hours I spent in it in an open house. So one of the projects we're working on is a way to track property identifiers on this technology. So essentially building applications like a Carfax, but for homes. So not only will this technology make it easier for realtors to transfer property and with less risk and less fraud, we also think it'll lead for more informed consumers. So our progress to date, I've spoken about this 22 times this year, twice a day this weekend for 4 days. My wife loves when I get to come and do these presentations on blockchain because I have someone to talk about blockchain with other than her. She did just send me an article the other day about tokenization of assets, and I think I'm finally convincing her after years and years of looking at this stuff. I also want to kind of give you like a state of the union of blockchain. Right now, there's 2 major players. Think of this as like a blockchain arms race, like Microsoft and IBM had 10, 15 years ago with the PCs. The 2 main players are the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance and also Hyperledger. Now, Ethereum is backed by a lot of major financial players because it has a cryptocurrency built into it. We don't really need to go into that right now, but know that Microsoft is pushing this technology very hard, as well as Cisco banks. The competitor in this space, which is more meant for enterprises and industries like ours, where this can be private and permission-based, is Hyperledger. This is actually a project that came out of IBM, but was donated to the Linux Foundation. They also they've been growing this product greatly for the past year or so. So if you do look at the part of blockchain that does involve cryptocurrency, just to give you guys an idea of how large that industry is, currently it's about $150 billion. But the reason I include this slide is to set up for the next one, is to clarify that blockchains do not equal cryptocurrency. And even though that cryptocurrency can be involved, it doesn't mean they have to be. Like, for example, Hyperledger, like the projects that we're building, they don't involve any at all. And we can still get the benefits out of the technology, like improved transaction speed, improved property records. We can help establish identity, and we can enforce contracts. One of NAR's REACH was actually a graduate of the REACH program, which is now a part of the Second Century Initiative portfolio, is a company called Trust Stamp, which is doing blockchain identity. to help verify people are who they say they are, which is especially needed when you've seen all of the leaks of personal information that have happened in the news over the past few months. So we do get to advocate, not in the similar sense that you would think of that NAR is advocating. We get to advocate on behalf of certain technologies that we think would help improve the industry. Like the videos we saw earlier of Bob saying that, you know, it doesn't matter if it wasn't invented in-house. If we see something that can help improve the industry, we want to embrace them and help make sure that they understand the needs of our industry to help raise the bar for everybody. So one example of this is we were able to host a 2-day hack fest here in Chicago in partnership with the state of Illinois. For this Hyperledger project, where we had developers from all over the world, over 100 developers come in and spend 2 days just trying to improve this product for uses like real estate. And it was really cool for me to see 150 people in a room and everyone programming at the same time. It was just it was a really cool experience. I was glad to be a part of that. And just wrapping up, I wanted to show the 3 projects that we are working on now inside CRT in partnership with a few other groups. This is the Universal Property ID Registry. Think of this as the VIN number for homes. We're looking to roll this out based on a standard that the Real Estate Standards Organization came up with for how that number should be formatted. And now that that number exists, we can start attaching entities to it, like was it listed for sale, was it assessed, was there ever any insurance claims. So we're working with a few people at RESO and hopefully getting this kicked off as a pilot. We're also using it internally. As you all know, as a Realtor member, you remember at 3 different levels of the association: your local, your state, your national. And while we do a good job sharing your syncing your information like your address and your phone number, what office you work for, right now we don't do a great job tracking your level of engagement. So if you were a realtor in New York and you had spent 30 years there attending classes, serving on committees, attending the convention, always donating to RPAC. If you had then moved to Florida, they might only get the information about your address and your phone number and not have the wealth of knowledge about how great of a leader you could be for their organization. So we hope to use this for recruiting leadership, for just better serving our Realtor members. I'm sure that you are also a little bit frustrated filling out the same leadership profile at 3 different members of the same association. So we are just kicking off this pilot now. We hope to have this, the early stages of this pilot running by the end of the year. We've partnered with a few different states, Florida, California, New Jersey, Massachusetts. So we hope to be able to use this technology not just to help you guys with the real estate transfer process, but also to help ourselves internally keep track of your accomplishments. And finally, this is a project that I had kind of just started within the past few weeks, where I'm looking to partner with any local county recorders offices who would like to attempt to start digitizing their title on a blockchain. Also looking for MLS partners. What this project is basically what I showed my first demo, where everyone could see how property could move throughout a transaction on a blockchain. We started having, and again, happy to show more live demos of this. So that is really all I have. Just to finish up, I wanted to let everyone know about our goals for this research, is we want to combine efforts, launch impactful industry-wide applications that involve blockchain, and also, maybe even more importantly, help define the governance, the access control, and operations of these projects. Because as soon as we start having these databases that are trustworthy and full of valuable information, it could potentially be worth some money. And defining access to that and governance of that, I think NAR would be a good organization to help define that. So at this point, I'll take any questions on blockchain. If Joe doesn't kick me off, I could really talk all day about this.
Keep going.
Great. So any questions? Yep. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I was trying to explain blockchain in 5 minutes, and I failed every single time. I feel like the demo is finally lands it. I appreciate that. I've heard of it. Yeah. Yep. Right. So the question was, had I heard a type of report that's available from insurance companies? I had heard of it, but I think that insurance companies especially should be looking at this technology, insurance, title, and mortgage too. Right. I think the more information you have about a property, you have a more informed consumer and a more streamlined transaction.
How does it keep it secure?
Sure. So there are multiple types of blockchains out there. Some are public, some are private. All the ones that I've demonstrated are going to be private, which means we control who gets access to write to them, as well as who gets to read from them. They use similar technologies to how certain banks keep their databases safe, except one of the neat things about blockchain is because if we all have a copy of the data, if anyone tried to alter that, we would all know. So there are multiple ways to keep this secure. And if you really want to get into like the hashing and stuff like that, I'd be happy to talk about that afterwards. Really would be happy. Yep.
So as it relates to blockchain,
Sure.
and you just mentioned there's more or less a fragmentation. Everyone's going to, for the beginning, the implementation, there's going to be a lot of different people implementing different blockchains.
Yep.
Is it going to be easy to integrate them? Do you see that as being a problem in the future?
I think by the time we're done, it's not going to be hundreds of blockchains, but thousands. Every industry is going to want their own, especially industries that are concerned about access to their data. A lot of real estate business models have been built upon controlling access to data. There are a few projects out there that are defining standards, kind of like the way RISO defines standards for MLSs to communicate in a competitive environment. That are going to allow for ledgers to actually interoperate with each other. One of those projects is called Hyperledger Quilt. So there are going to need to be standards for that. It's just going to be, we're going to have to see which chains are the most successful and then start working towards the interoperability.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Here in the front. Correct. Yeah, in this example, yes, I have it so anyone subscribed to that transaction can get access from it. For example, the broker and the client, the home builder, and the county. All of that is, you can configure it however you would like. That's just how I did it for this demo. And if people would actually like to play around with that demo and kind of get hands-on with the blockchain sandbox, it's ledger.crtlabs.org, and you're welcome to build houses all weekend if you want. Yep. Okay, here.
So with your demo, you imagine that it's a transaction.
Yep.
What do you think is the future of the buy-side agent that completes their role? And how far along are we from that being a reality mainstream?
Sure. I'll take so the first question was, how would this change from a buyer's agent role, and then how long for this is, ubiquitous? I would give this about 10 years or so before it is completely ubiquitous, involved in every transaction. But it will not take that long for companies to start having success. I think there could be companies who are doing this within the next 3 years. They could be having some extreme success with this. How it looks from a buyer's agent, I mean, it's yet to be seen. I mean, technology comes and impacts industries all the time. I don't believe that. I don't believe that any type of realtor will no longer be needed. I think this kind of changes the roles of realtors in the transaction and kind of takes care of the stuff that you don't like doing anyways, like managing the paperwork, and the legal aspect of this will be kind of handled for you, and you kind of get to focus on helping your buyers find the right neighborhood, finding the right homes, and then from there it's just a little bit more turnkey. But you're still there to be the local advisor, because you obviously can't trust algorithms for everything.
Let me add something real quick to the buyer's agent, which
Sure.
I thought was super interesting. The cool thing about this is that it adds transparency. How many of us today have gone out there and put an offer and we're not sure if the offer went through? We're not sure if the owner got it. This might be a great way in the future to make sure that all offers are
presented.
verified.
No, definitely. So sure. So how I imagine this working really is to repeat the question, after the transaction closes, if this is a private blockchain, how do they keep access to this? I imagine that the private aspect of this, especially in this demo, would just be for writing to the chain. But this bottom county view, I would imagine being completely public, and anyone could go and look up anytime, because it's, it's kind of like making public data more accessible and more trusted. I could also see that if this were to go live, that the MLSs could build the infrastructure and then offer the services to the county for free, because we know often that they are under budgeted, understaffed, and could use some upgrades when it comes to tech. Yep. Sure. Right, so what was brought up was another blockchain product called Ethereum, which also has smart contracts built into it and cryptocurrency built into it. That would allow, two people to just buy and sell directly, kind of similar to what you could do today with cash, I guess. Some people think the industry is going that way. I definitely do not. I wouldn't trust somebody. I wouldn't trust that type of transaction, but it is up to the public to decide eventually.
We're going to take just 3 more questions and then move on.
Okay, great. Yep.
If you could speak a little bit towards the security of the data, because I understand that decentralizing the data makes it more trustworthy because you have multiple copies spread out. But if I'm storing that data in my office, how can we make sure that someone that wants to affect everything can't get in through my office into the chain and then make changes that way?
Sure. And I think it's important to look at this technology not just as if it was the only solution out there, but to compare it to what exists today. And a lot of those risks you're speaking of, might be unavoidable. And this is kind of the reason why I'm recommending the permissioned chains, the private permission chains, because if there was an issue, we could always append it and fix it. Where on some of the public blockchains, you would have no control after that was out in the wild. So I think the fact that this is on like the Hyperledger project, you would be able to repair that damage after it's been done, where you might not be able to do on the other ones. It's a really good question, though.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Question for you. Our data that we continue to give to our competition, that ends up working against us, and we empower our competition by giving them the data, the current data that's out there. I guess, just question, why do we do that? And then any...
Well, I'm guessing it's because of consumer demand, but maybe a practitioner can handle that question.
Great question. Wrong forum.
Okay.
It's probably the best answer. I can definitely answer it to you after the forum.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. All right, and I guess that'll be our final question, and then we'll 2 more questions. Okay.
So my question relates to after the transaction. So once this whole process takes place and the transaction closes, then where does the data go? Does that get, I understand it gets recorded at the county and so forth, but so
that would depend on the implementation. So with the few pilots that we're spinning up, it could be MLSs that are kind of responsible for running those. It could be an organization like NAR who's running it, or it could be a state who's responsible for it. We're really early on in the process that we won't know for sure. It really just depends on what the first few successful pilots are. But what's cool is that we get to help decide that, right?
okay.
We're early enough at it where we
so
could
TBA,
guide this.
TBD?
Yeah.
TBD?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jack Stapleton. I'm from Texas.
Yep.
My question is, the development of these types of technologies are not inexpensive. And at a time when the realtors are getting hit with more and more expenses and their commissions are under attack, who is paying for these types of technologies?
Sure, great question. What I'm really excited about this technology is that actually it's all built, the entire stack is built on open source software, which means that there are no licensing fees. So besides the actual server time, like you would pay to keep your website up, it's actually very, very low cost once the initial system has been built, to the point where this demo right here is running on a $20 server, and that is all completely within license on all software involved. right, thank you. So I'll be at 2825 to talk more blockchain. Yep.